The world is becoming increasingly proficient at telling stories that deny God. As such, we need Thinking Christian to become as natural as breathing. Welcome to the Thinking Christian podcast. I'm Dr. James Spencer. Through calm, thoughtful, theological discussions, Thinking Christian highlights the ways God is working in the world and questions the underlying social, cultural, and political assumptions that hinder Christians from becoming more like Christ. Now, on to today's episode of Thinking Christian. Hey everyone, before we start today's episode, I want to take a moment to tell you about usefultogod.com. From online courses to free downloadable study guides, I'm confident you'll find something to help you live faithfully in today's world. You can also check out some of my books, including Christian Resistance, Serpents and Doves, and my most recent contribution, the D.L. Moody Essentials Collection. As always, if you find this podcast valuable, take a second to like, share, and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel for even more content to equip and encourage you. Now, let's get into today's episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Thinking Christian. I'm Dr. James Spencer, and I'm joined by Danny Adams. And Danny is an entertainer. He's done an awful lot in the entertainment space. Most recently, maybe not most recently, but he's definitely done comedy. He was actually involved in some singing sort of things going on back when he was younger. He's stood in for some football players as a stuntman on various commercials, which I'm kind of interested in. I didn't even know that was a thing. I don't know why I wouldn't have known that was the thing, because it just makes sense, but it's super cool. And then we're gonna talk a little bit about his work on Iggy and Mr. Kirk, which is a new series from Brave Books. And so I'm just excited to have you on the show, man. Thanks for coming on, Danny.
Thanks so much, Dr. James. Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is our first time meeting each other. So and maybe the right place to start is just talk a little bit about your sort of professional road and what led you into a little bit of Brave Books and this new venture you've got going on with Iggy and Mr. Kirk.
Yeah, man, what a journey. I'll try to make this as quick as possible and as short as condensed, but I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. I grew up in a gospel singing family. If you know anything about the old Partridge Family or the Osmonds, it was sort of out of that book, if you will. We traveled around in our big bus and would set up and tear down at churches and sing the gospel, but also we would perform comedy, and we had annual variety shows that we would do. And so I learned at a young age that laughter truly was medicine for people, and throwing on wigs and developing original characters, all while at the same time singing in between and playing the drums. And it was a lot of fun. It was a unique upbringing, but sport outside of music, sports was also a big part of our lives. We all played a lot of sports. Football ended up being my main sport. I went off to college, played there, and eventually over to Europe and played in Europe. Yes, they have American football in Europe. And that's a whole documentary that needs to be made right there. But after I set down the cleats, I went out to Hollywood and dove into full-time entertainment. I knew that was sort of my whole life. It was like plan A was take sports as far as you could, and plan B was going to get back into entertainment of what I grew up on stage doing. And that's what I did. I dove in. I was taking improv classes at the Groundlings, which is sort of the equivalent of a Second City comedy school. I did that, piecemealing a lot of my entertainment work. I was acting, doing comedy, and then also taking my football background to do stunt work in the industry. So that is, if you've ever wondered, if these professionals are doing all of the physical parts to the commercial or taking hits, they're not. They're not going to take a chance in the world of getting hurt in the off season and doing a commercial. So yeah, there's about 3, 4, 5 main stunt coordinators in Los Angeles, and they would hire guys who actually played and have a background in it to do background work and sometimes double. And so I had an opportunity to double Peyton Manning and Drew Brees, and it was a lot of fun. And so yeah, it's kind of the director, cool. Makes them the face of, as soon as he's going to take a hit or anything, get the star out of there and bring the dummy in, and then you take the hits, and hopefully get paid that day. So, but yeah, so I did that, but I've always doing some things in front of the camera. I've had experience doing that But I was loved live. And so I created a one-man show I did for about 3 years. And then from there, that kind of developed into an evening that I now still do. I travel the country doing a show called Laughter is Medicine. And I bring that in forms of just entertainment or also in keynote. I'm a keynote speaker. And and also an MC. And so cut to Brave Books. They hired me to come on board to help them with some fundraising and MC the event, bring a lot of energy and some laughter to the event. And through that, I got to meet Kirk Cameron and the leadership there at Brave. Well, they were at the sort of beginning stages of developing this new show, Iggy and Mr. Kirk. And they said, hey, we're still casting for that. And in fact, we need a mailman because the show they're calling it the modern day Mr. Rogers. And if you remember Mr. Rogers at all, they in fact had a mailman. So this show has a mailman, and that turned out to be me. And I'm Mailman Dan, and I deliver the daily mail. He's a real fun-loving, sweet-spirited man who's extremely clumsy. So he's got to deliver the mail up to Mr. Kirk's treehouse every day, and he's always full of packages, and he just can't seem to get it all together. And so it's definitely some physical comedy involved, which I've always loved. And he drops off the Brave book that Mr. Kirk reads to Iggy in each episode of the series. So it's a lot of fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How many, just going back kind of the beginning, how many brothers and sisters did you have to do the gospel rounding and tours? You mentioned the Partridge Family. Is that the size I should be thinking?
Yeah, we weren't too large of a family. I was the youngest of 3 kids.
Okay.
It was interesting that everybody who, when we had different pieces, outside family members be a part of the group at different times. When my brother and sister got married, their spouses jumped on board and, grabbed an instrument or sang or whatever. And it's definitely the family road act. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And where'd you end up playing football in college?
Yeah, I went to a school called Olivet Nazarene University, which
I know Olivet Nazarene. Yeah.
So that was wonderful. I actually grew up in the Nazarene church, with that's how I was raised, and my parents were raised, and so that was a blessing to go there. Love that university. Have some very fun memories of playing ball and going to school there.
One of my wife's early jobs was in Kankakee, Illinois. And she worked at a hospital there, St. Mary's, and occasionally I'd go up to the Bears camp, which used to be held. I don't think they hold it there anymore, but it used to be held in Olivet, and I believe in Olivet Nazarene, if I'm correct.
That's exactly it. Bourbonnais, Illinois, man.
Yeah, Bourbonnais.
Yeah, but the Bears, that contract just recently ended, man. But I know that the town loved having them there.
Oh, yeah.
And they added so much to the university in terms of facilities and some of the were great. Yeah.
Very cool. And so talk a little bit about your time playing football in Europe. I'm interested in that dynamic too, because, for one, football over there doesn't mean football. It means soccer. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you truly are playing American football in Europe. What's the response from the folks over there in Europe where you're sort of importing a sport that, is very foreign to them in a lot of ways?
Yes. Yeah. And since I played, it's gained, so much notoriety and momentum overseas. The football is just so big now, especially the NFL.
Yeah.
The brand is so big. But back then, that's why I mentioned the documentary. It was so interesting.
Right.
I mean, so I started out in Eastern Europe. I was in the Czech Republic, and that was wild. I mean, you're playing with, you can only have so many Americans on the team. So you're getting a lot of local players and maybe some from other countries coming over. And it's just a different culture, man. These guys are, there's a couple guys before each practice, they're out, smoking and throwing a couple back. I'm like, dude, you're about to go practice on that. And as soon as practice ended or the games, I mean, they're throwing down their beer, as in, and in the Czech, the beer is very, very popular. But and then I went over, I spent just a little bit of time in Austria and then eventually Switzerland. which that in itself was such a different culture from Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So it was, and the football was better. Even in Austria, if you go to places like Vienna, the Vienna Vikings, their local team, I mean, they're little celebrities. I mean, it's like they're on calendars and posters and all over, so that's a big deal. Vienna Vikings have won the Euro Cup a few years, so cool. I think depending on where you go, it has a little bit more notoriety, but still most people, like you said, it's soccer is king. We played our games in soccer stadiums, and you meet most people on the street. It's like, there's still a lot of questions around how do you play the game? What does it make sense?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it feeds the ego a little bit too, just because you're like, hey, yeah, I'm an American football player.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Czech Republic, I got to go there, I think last summer to teach, and it was interesting to watch. I mean, there were folks who lived there, and they were like, yeah, we have non-alcoholic beer that people drink instead of water. It's just that sort of ingrained in that culture. It's like, what are you going to drink? It's sort of like us picking up a cup of coffee or something like that. It's like, I'll have a beer. It was a really interesting dynamic over there.
Yeah.
So
that's funny. The beer with electrolytes, it's just hydrating beer. Yeah, no, it really is. It's just what you did. It's such a part of the fabric, of the culture. So very interesting for me.
Do you feel like any of those experiences, I mean, as you're going out to LA and you're sort of developing the one man show and you're starting to do comedy and improv and all that kind of stuff, do you feel like those, I mean, obviously I would assume your earlier performing experiences informed that, but even some of the then cross-cultural experiences you have almost certainly have to carry back over into the comedy, don't they? I mean, how do you think about that? What's the creative process to sort of start a one-man show, get that going, and draw on your own experiences to build that out?
For some of us, personal finances aren't just personal. They include loved ones, neighbors, the communities we call home, and the causes we hold in our hearts. At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than just money. We help you put your plans into motion and faith into action so you can do more for the ones in your heart. Because sometimes all you need to make a difference is someone to help you make it happen. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.
Man, great question, James. I think the best comedy is authentic comedy, and obviously as comedians, you embellish, and that's part of the funny, right? You're pointing out, you're talking about truth, but yet you can embellish and have fun with it. So,
right.
But man, everything, when you talk about my one man show, everything was authentic to how I grew up. So I had, from traveling with my family and going to the nooks and crannies of the Midwest in these little, podunk towns, and you got that culture, but yet I'm on Monday through Friday, I'm attending a inner city public school where I am a token white kid, playing ball. I mean, you should see my school, athletic pictures. You can't miss me. And it's very urban, very, just understanding and learning sort of the streets, if you will, having that, and also having that. So, man, all of that influence you. And I counted a blessing because not everybody can be exposed to that diversity, and so I had both. And so, which then has come out into my comedy. And even now, as I travel, I'm going to, I'm in front of a lot of different crowds. And one thing I will say is I feel comfortable in any crowd and of any age. I'm the youngest of three kids. I kind of have a bit of an old soul, so I feel very comfortable with a more mature audience, but yet maybe still in that, hopefully in that pocket where I was still a bit relevant to even college students. And so, it definitely has shaped and influenced me for sure.
When you think about that idea of like truth in comedy and how you sort of embellish it and almost like ratchet up the intensity a little bit, one of my favorite scenes ever, and I've used it in classes when I've taught, and I think I've actually written a little article referencing it, is the scene out of Talladega Nights, if you've ever seen it, the baby Jesus prayer, where Will Ferrell is praying and he does the baby Jesus prayer. Right. And I when I talk about that in class, I say, look at what they're doing now. I don't think this is something that the movie is intentionally doing to sort of help Christians along.
Right.
But they are pointing to an interesting dynamic about having, as Depeche Mode might say, our own personal Jesus, right? And how that this can easily sort of become this sort of interesting, like, oh, he's mine, and I've made him into what I want him to be, right? Versus actually respecting him. And so I like when I look at that scene, I think it's hilarious, but I also think it's really telling a story about one perspective on how Christians respond to God.
Yeah.
And so all that to say, when you think about that truth in comedy, is that kind of what you're pushing toward? How do you, what's going on in your mind when you're kind of thinking, I think this will be funny because it's truthful, it kind of hurts, but it can be amusing.
Yes. Yeah, and I think a lot of funny comes. An audience has to trust you. I mean, there's an earning of trust, if you will.
Yeah.
And when you come in, because it's all about connection. Am I connecting with these people? If you don't connect, they could kind of care less. Why do they care? Do they trust you? And so there's something about which I do now in my shows. My one-man show did represent, that was complete performance. I think I did 12 to 14 characters. And within that, which was a wide range of different characters. So you're hoping that maybe some of those characters, and they connected with some for some people, some for another, because they're, I know that character. I do a security guard named Artie, who is a very Barney Fife type of character, and he takes his job way too serious, right? And we've all encountered the guy who's taking his job way too serious. All right, slow down. And most people can connect with a guy like that. But then I've also have a couple urban characters where it's like, okay, I've never lived that life, but yet you got part of your crowd that is like belly laughing, hysterically.
Yeah.
So now what I do now is I do less character work. I still do a little bit, but I do a lot of I kind of lean into my improv background, and I ask a lot of questions. I talk to people, and I pull the funny in the moment. And so many people appreciate that organic, you can't make it up, you can't script it, funny. And it's almost giving people permission to go there, to be more vulnerable and to laugh. And man, there's definitely an art form. I couldn't, at this point in my career, I couldn't write a book on it necessarily, but there is definitely something to say about giving permission, unlocking that in people to just have fun, to let go. We all carry stress and anxiety to some degree. Life smacks us, in different ways. And it's just, it's the most rewarding, James, when I can walk into a room and it's a very, cold audience. Like I don't know them, they don't know me.
Yeah.
And to see where they go from here to here in a 60-minute period, and they're all in. They go from like, a little reluctant to kind of get going, because I'm high energy, man. I bring them up, I get them out of their seats. I'm like, let's go. We're going to have some, we're going to have a great time. And it's kind of like, you get the people who are like, all right, what the heck are we doing? I'm doing a keynote speech at 9 a.m. They're barely getting through their first cup of coffee, and they're like, what are we doing? And then to watch that transformation by the end, and they're all in, right? And I always ask them, I said, how does it, do we feel a little bit better now than we did when we walked in this room? And I love to see all the hands raised. Like, man, this was just a jolt, a shot of laughter and energy. There's so much science behind what laughter does and all the feel, but comedy is, it's definitely, and I've gained confidence, as years go on, you start finding your voice and your rhythm and all the things. But you do realize that we're all human, and we all do have a desire. God has created that way, us that way to laugh. It's Proverbs. I stand on Proverbs 17:22, which says, "A merry heart does good like medicine." The back end of that scripture says, "But a broken spirit dries the bones." And so he's like, well, God calls it out. He's like, man, you're going to dry up if your heart is crusty and unforgiveness and all these other things kind of lay in there. You're going to get hardened. So, hey, release that. And so I ask people, I'm intentional about it. Like, hey, what makes you laugh? Like let's be intentional about it. Find your Talladega Nights, find whatever is your sort of notion for laughter. and do that. Get around the friends that make you laugh, go see the movie, go whatever you got to do. Break out an old black and white film. My parents raised us on a lot of the old black and whites, man, from I Love Lucy to Honeymooners to all the classics, a lot of physical comedy. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. I mean, I think I just want to make sure I understood you right, that when you go into some of these rooms, you're using your improv background. You don't actually have a set that you're going to do, right? That you've memorized. You're going to go up there and, just do your thing. You're actually doing an interactive comedy set every time. That yes. Sort of sounds, I mean, I guess in some ways it's almost like an interview, right? We didn't go over any of these questions. We're not like, it's just sort of a fluid, wherever it takes us sort of idea. Yeah. But I mean, maybe it's because I don't do comedy, but that sounds really stressful to me, brother.
Yeah. And most people who hear that say, dude, I can never do that. Right. I can never, like, the unknown is just the thought of it. Right? And I think that, again, that is, I'm extremely comfortable in the unknown and awkward. Like I just, because, and that is, as you learn in comedy, even when I did stand up for a little bit, so I've done some stand up. Embrace the pause was one of the first rules that you learn, because typically the silence or the pause is what is in our minds as a presenter is what stresses us out. And so what happens is we typically speed up to get through the presentation, because then you're in your own head saying, they hate it. Let me just get through it and get off the stage. Yeah. Right? Exit stage left. But when you realize that audiences, they come in, everybody's carrying some level of, you have your extreme extroverts who are just like walking into a room, big and loud.
Right.
But most of us have some type of like, wonder what this is going to be. Some people are have extreme social anxiety. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I'm not sure. And so when you realize that, the quicker that you can make the audience feel comfortable and make them feel a part of what you're doing, it's like everybody takes a deep breath, right? And everybody kind of relaxes. And it's interesting to even get the people who would never participate in a million years, when you do things in group and you ask them to respond back to you in group, and they're hearing their own voice and they're doing maybe a little physical something, all of a sudden there's something in their mind that says, oh, I'm a part of this, because everybody wants to connect. We all have a desire. God has made us for relationship and to connect with others. As much as we try hard to isolate ourselves, that is not good for our health. It is like we are there to connect. So when they are a part of that, and then by the end, you see that everybody's, kind of wheels turning, and it happens that way. But it really is now my interactive presentation, because it has little bookmarks, if you will, so there's games that I play that are in place. Those are things, but no show is ever the same. And that's a beautiful thing for myself and the guy that I travel with who runs all my AV, because we can debrief after every event and say, man, can you believe, Nancy did that or Joe did that? And because you never know. People will, and it's so amazing to watch that. And then when people do the unexpected, that's what I lean into. And I now I'm like, there's more there. And when people see other people getting a little vulnerable, then like, oh, okay, I can now go there. I can now cross that line that I would have never before. And there's something, and then I go, wait, I'm the first one to like, hey, I'm going to go there. I'm going to be, whether it's self-deprecating, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be silly, because I can present. You can't see me on screen, but I look like a jock. I look like, and so some people are, okay, how's the jock funny? Because if you look at a Will Ferrell or some of the comedians, you can, they're funny just looking at you.
Just looking at them, they're funny. Yeah.
But me, it's like, oh, what? And so I have to let them know that, I am, I don't take myself serious, right? I got a football background, but I was the guy in the locker room who wanted to cut up and have fun and make every experience fun. And so that's kind of what that looks like, and so it is, and I used to, it's when last thing I'll say about that, James, that is with anything, with your profession, with anybody's profession, it's reps, right? You're getting better at your craft. And for me, if I had some downtime and haven't done a live event in a while, I've got a little bit more butterflies, backstage waiting to go up than if I normally, we're boom, boom, boom. It's just what happens. It's like anything though. Once you get out there, you tell your first thing, you get the first laugh. Here we go. I equate it to football. Football, I felt like I had to pee in the locker room, 3 times before I went to warm-ups, just because your adrenaline is going so much. But as soon as you take the first hit, you're like, all right, here we go.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I think that's number one. I think it's just a really interesting. I think the only experience I've had even close to what you're describing in sort of a big group setting is my wife and I went to see Ben Folds in concert, and he does this thing. They were talking about it the entire concert. It was the first time we'd seen him. So they were like, yeah, get your airplanes ready. And my wife and I are like, what's he talking about? Well, at intermission, everybody threw paper airplanes up on stage, and they'd have different songs. Didn't have to be his songs, just songs on them. And he would walk around during the second act. He didn't have a set playlist. He'd just pick up an airplane, open it up, and then sit down at the piano, play and sing it. You're just like, this is crazy.
That's crazy.
It's super impressive. Yeah. But it's like, that's the only thing I have, because every other thing I've ever seen, it's like, if we go to a Zac Brown Band concert, they'll end with Rage Against the Machine, or they'll do something, that's not out of their catalog, but they've rehearsed it. Like it's planned, like they know what they're doing.
Yes.
But Ben Folds, you just walking around the stage, getting an airplane and being like, oh, I already played that one, tossing that one, whatever. You're just like, this is nuts. This is crazy. Like, what happens if he finds someone that he doesn't know? Like, but it never happened. Yeah. Crazy.
That's wild. So, that's impressive. And that's and because he's allowing the audience to obviously participate,
right.
Whoever suggested that song, they're like, they're going wild, not to mention everybody, like, I love that song.
Yeah, so, exactly.
That's a great thing. It's almost like, so you think what is it? Whose line is it anyway?
Yes.
Same type of thing. They're taking audience suggestions. Yeah. And I even went to a local Dallas improv store not too long ago, and they did that. They're taking, a bunch of Post-it notes from people that gave suggestions at the beginning of the show and making a scene out of it. So
right. So pretty cool. I mean, I think there's just an amazing talent to be able to do that, and an amazing, I would say, a posture to be able to do it. Just being able to accept some of those things, think quickly enough on your feet to use it as part of an interesting show that gets people going, entertains people. I think that's amazing. But I think even maybe the more profound point you're making is those reps. I think a lot of times we forget that the people who are really good at something have probably put a ton of work in prior to that. And we get stuck on the, man, I wish I were that good at something, as opposed to going, I should probably start getting the reps in so I could get really good at that thing.
Yes.
Yes. It's like,
is your want to great enough, to put into action? I mean, you look at the Michael Jordans and the Kobe Mamba mentality. Look at their stories. I just listened to a little bite today from what's his name, DeMarcus DeRozan. He was on the Paul George. It's a couple NBA players just talking, and they're like, even at that level, who are making, these guys are making millions of dollars. They said some guys just show up 10 minutes before practice, and they just kind of go through the motions. They don't love the game, and he said, but these guys who are the Hall of Famers, man, they're there before and after
constantly.
It's you're like, am I honing my craft? And I think that you're want to, and I think it's just got to grow enough where if it's burning deep inside, it's like I've got to put in my hours. I've got to put in work. And so, and part of it too is what is our gifting? What is God graced us for? And I think that it's like the many talents that He gave in the Bible. What are we doing with those gifts? And so I thank God every day. I'm like, it's yes, I can go out there. I recognize that there's a gift in that, but it's like, man, let me give it right back to the Lord, because it's His anyway, and He gets the glory. So so there's something about that, like stewarding your gifts. So
Well, when you think about your role on Iggy and Mr. Kirk, it's drastically different than the improv you just described. I mean, I'm guessing it's more scripted. I'm guessing, it's much more, tailored to a specific scene, and you're not able just to play off the people there. How do you feel doing that? Do you feel like I know you've done some of it before, but does it feel like, which are you more comfortable with? Do you prefer one versus the other, or are they just different to you?
For some of us, personal finances aren't just personal. They include loved ones, neighbors, the communities we call home, and the causes we hold in our hearts. At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than just money. We help you put your plans into motion and faith into action so you can do more for the ones in your heart. Because sometimes all you need to make a difference is someone to help you make it happen. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.
Man, that's a great question, James, because when you are in a scene, you especially when that is scripted, man, those other actors are counting on you to deliver and with good timing. It's when I'm doing my own bit, I'm freelancing, bro. I'm out there with my live events, like, hey, and all of a sudden I'm on set, like, oh man, I got to memorize these lines and nail it. The one thing I'm appreciative of with the head writer was he was flexible in allowing me to tweak lines just as I kind of really leaned into who is Mailman Dan? What is his voice?
Yeah.
Would he say that, or would he say this? That's, and they were really good about like, oh man, I love that. And so they gave me ownership of that, which was great. But yes, that is a different type of comedy. The one thing that I really appreciated about it though, is I'm not a dramatic actor. I've had a couple of roles, but I love comedy. And with this character in particular, I love physical comedy. So the physical comedy, going over my blocking, what I'm going to do, that actually helped me like memorize or learn or understand why he would say this. And so yeah, it's sort of a learned thing, which I hadn't done in a while. I've done some acting along the way, but I'm doing much more live events. Now I'm on set, and Iggy's treehouse is relatively small, and especially the front porch. And here I am coming in. I'm up in the trees, and the set is beautiful. By the way, they constructed this whole like treehouse, amazing. The kids are going to love it. But just finding my physical comedy up there, but also being in frame. And so it was some definitely getting used to. And there was a couple of the more experienced actors on set who I really leaned on to say, hey, how does this look? How's this sound? They were fantastic. And, you got Kirk Cameron there, Lee Allen Baker. Lee Allen Baker had such success with her Disney show, Good Luck Charlie.
Yeah.
So being in the kids' world specifically for her, she was fantastic. I had a built-in coach right there, just helping Mailman Dan, find his footing. So, yeah.
I don't know a ton about Brave Books. I looked at it after we booked the interview just to kind of get a general understanding of it. But where does this show fit within what all they're doing? Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah. So, and again, I don't work for Brave Books, but just being a part of that culture and what they're doing, it's definitely humbling, because they have made a dent in today's culture in a positive way. Trent Talbot, the CEO, he was convicted. He has young kids, and he saw, he's looking at what he's putting them in front of, whether it's books or TV shows. And he's like, man, there's a lot of craziness out here. And, in fact, I didn't even know this until I got involved with them, but, 150 new LGBT type characters are introduced in kids shows just in the last few years. And he's like, man, there's a need for some good, wholesome, content. And so he developed Brave Books. And that story is pretty crazy, because they then teamed up with Kirk Cameron, or Kirk came over with them, and Kirk Cameron started going around and doing story hour in public libraries.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, there were roughly 50 public libraries that turned him down due to the content, which was actually good content, but they said it wasn't inclusive. It didn't match their, what they stood on. And it was interesting that they were saying it was inclusive, and then they said you can't come.
Right.
So
always interesting.
Yeah. And these are the same libraries that were hosting drag hour, drag queen hours. And so anyhow, Kirk Cameron, he rolled up his sleeves and said, well, I'm going to exercise my constitutional right if you don't let us in. And then that kind of got some, that kind of public, and, I know Fox News and a couple other people carried it. And so by the time he got into those libraries, because they finally said, okay, you can come in, no one's going to show up kind of thing. Man, thousands of people, those mama bears and grandmas and everybody else were showing up with their kids in support of him doing this. And I know in Indianapolis alone, which I think was his first library, they had, I don't know, roughly 3,000 people coming. They couldn't even fit them all in the library. They gave him a space of about 100 people. And so and you had the protesters too, and all the things. But it basically really put Brave Books on the map. And their books are phenomenal. They've been authored by a lot of great Christian influencers, conservative influencers, and then from that they said, hey, let's parlay this into a show and make this. Let's put these bring these books to life, because it takes place on Freedom Island. The stories come to life through these animals. And the older animals are teaching the young animals to stand up and be brave in the face of culture and what today's thrown at you. And then have Kirk be sort of that modern day Mr. Rogers. You couldn't even imagine anyone playing a Mr. Rogers based on what
right.
But if anybody is, it's Kirk Cameron, man. He's the real deal. I mean, all the time I've spent around that guy, he is as genuine as you get. You understand why guys called him and equipped him to be on the front lines of media and faith and all the things. And so it's great. So yeah, they've done a great job. They've got a lot going on. They're a lot of different projects, but this one in particular, Iggy and Mr. Kirk, I think is it's exciting because it's going to give families a chance to sit down. It's a great tempo. It's catered to ages 3 to 9. I think that's sort of their pocket. There's a real kid who shows up every episode through Maple, the computerized tree, and they're talking about their issues that is relevant to whatever the theme of the show is. And I just feel like I think everybody's, we've already got great response already, but I think it's gonna continue to do really, really well. There's 20 episodes that we've already shot, and so I'm excited to get the feedback after we get through season 1.
Yeah. I remember we have a 4-year-old that we recently adopted. And so we're in sort of Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street, Reading Rainbow, kind of land. Right. Yeah. And, they were, I sat down and watched one the other day. I was kind of hanging out with her and I was like, oh, I remember these. These are cool. I mean, I watched him make bowling balls and I was like, what an interesting process.
Yeah.
You just kind of sit back and you're like, it's not the most exciting thing I've ever watched, right? It's not, it's not like I'm going to go rent the box set and just sit there and watch Reading Rainbow all day or whatever. But I understood the nostalgia of it. I understood the importance of it.
Yeah.
The values it was teaching were really interesting. It's introducing kids to new ideas and new things. It's like showing what you can do with your hands. It's like all of these different areas. Whereas, you kind of watch more modern day cartoons. And one of the ones I was like, I'm banning it just because I'm annoyed by it is SpongeBob. I'm like, no SpongeBob in the house. Like, I can't deal with this. Yeah. I don't even understand what I'm watching.
Yeah.
And so but then you go back to some of these other ones and you're like, this isn't just entertainment.
Yeah.
It's also educating them on something that has some value, that has some substance to it. And
right.
so it sounds like Iggy and Mr. Kirk is sort of a reproduction of that tone of show. I mean, the Mr. Rogers connection makes perfect sense because we had talked earlier, it's live action with animation mixed in. And so that kind of almost mirrors the, what was it? The Imagination Land he'd go to. I can't even remember what it's called now.
Oh yeah,
Mr. Rogers,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. It kind of mirrors that. Kind of, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So
you're nailing it. Yeah, you're nailing it certainly, because I think a lot of shows it's just stimulation. It's just constant,
right.
With no substance whatsoever. Right.
Just watch and drool. That's it. That's all you really need to do. Watch and drool.
Yeah. No, but you're absolutely right. And I don't even know why I haven't mentioned this yet, but Iggy is the star of the show. Iggy's a puppet. He's an iguana, but he's a puppet. And he and his relationship with Culture the vulture, who comes in, who tries to, he's always trying to kind of plant the seeds of doing deceivious things and manipulating Iggy in different ways. Iggy is, both these puppeteers are from Sesame Street. You mentioned Sesame Street. These guys worked decades in that world, and still do. And I think for all of us, Kirk and the whole team, we all were astonished by that level and craft that, of their craft as a puppeteer. Right. It was crazy. Like these guys are, and if there's a cool documentary out about Jim Henson, kind of gives you an inside look to that. But man, the way they would contort their bodies to get their hands up into the puppet, and being at weird angles all along, finding their eye line to the camera. They're looking at a monitor. They're reading their lines, making sure that they're in place. There's things that they hold and throw and play instrument. I mean, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
So, not only is Iggy the star of the show, genuinely, because it's all, every day is featuring him and what he's going through. But I think everybody on set was recognizing that, okay, we're amongst, genius people right now with these, as these puppeteers. But John Kennedy plays Iggy and Ricky Boyd plays Culture. And there's a few other handful of puppets that come along. Those two are the sort of the main featured characters and puppets. It's amazing. So it's a great cast. The level, and I know that Texas Filmworks, who helped film and produce this, they felt the same way. They were like, wow, they've never filmed puppets before. Yeah.
It's not something you would, for most of us, you see the end result, you don't see the process. And so seeing the process has to be pretty fascinating, right? It's not just the, what you used to in church with sock puppets or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like a for real,
the old church puppet show.
It's an actual skill set.
It is a major skill set that takes, again, we talked about it, the reps of over and over and over again. And John Kennedy, Iggy, who plays Iggy, he also made the puppets. He makes the puppets in the basement of his home, and he's got the levers inside the puppets and all the things that come with it. It's fascinating. And there were things that he did right on set that they were like, John, we need, he's back in his Airbnb, making a new puppet. And oh gosh, he's impressive. Everybody agrees that, okay, we got a couple stars with us, that on this show.
Yeah.
And I think that because kids are going to get lost. They're going to just fall in love with Iggy. But you get lost in the fact that that's a character. That's a real iguana, and not thinking of what goes behind it. But it's a cool behind the scenes look if you ever get a chance at just the puppet world. It's wild.
Very cool. So you finished filming the first season, correct?
Yeah, and that we've actually got the 2 seasons in the can.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool. It was a busy summer. We filmed in May and again in August, and got 20 episodes all together. And so it's, as we've rolled this out, there's a lot more to come. And so 20 altogether is what we've done.
And where will people be able to watch them?
Yeah, so you go to watchbrave.com. watchbrave.com. You can watch it there. And then from there, it kind of will give you can watch the first 3 episodes there, and then it will give you sort of the roadmap to unlock the other episodes. Yeah.
Okay. WatchBraveTV.com.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay,
yeah.
So first 3 episodes are up. Are all 40 episodes then? You said 2 seasons are in the can, or are there only what's available for?
Yeah. There's the first 3 are there, and then from there they can easily get involved in terms of it will show you kind of how to get into the other episodes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well,
and you have the 4-year-old.
Yeah. No, I got to check it out. I've seen Brave Books at NRB, National Religious Broadcasters. Yeah. And so I was aware of them through that. And then obviously through the Kirk Cameron library stuff that you kind of narrated. And, but I didn't know that they were doing programming like this. And so, it's very cool. I think definitely something I'll check out. But, well, man, this has been cool. I'm fascinated by your comedy. I'm fascinated by the way you think about entertaining audiences. And I just really appreciate you being on and sharing that with us and kind of helping us see inside your head a little bit, understand your process, and think through how to relate to crowds, get those reps in, and excited about what you're doing with Brave Books too. So really appreciate it.
Thank you, James. I appreciate, man. These were, I love interviews like this. You did a great job asking the right questions because I think we all need that, right? Why do you do what you do? What does that process look like? I think it helps us all, ask ourselves that, and then hopefully sharpen that and be authentic and ultimately connect with people. So.
Well, give a little plug, man. Where can people find you other than on Iggy and Mr. Kirk?
Yeah. So they can find me on my website, IamDannyAdams.com. Really easy. IamDannyAdams.com. You'll find it. It says Laughter is Medicine, Facilitator of Fun. So that's the unofficial title. Someone gave that to me. I'm like, all right, I'm keeping it.
Yeah. Don't give that away. Well, Danny, we appreciate you being on the show, man. And I'll get the links to those sites in the show description, folks. So if you're looking for Danny, you want to connect with him more, see what he's doing, you can check out that website in the show notes. And just really appreciate you being here, bro. It's been great meeting you and talking through some of this stuff. For somebody we hadn't met before this, but I really appreciated the conversation. So great to get to know you.
Likewise, James.
All right, everybody. Well, that's it for this episode of Thinking Christian. Appreciate you being here, and we will catch you on the next one. Take care.
I just want to take a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on the Thinking Christian podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
Want to learn more about God and His will for your life, one verse at a time? I'm Quinice Petway, co-host of the Your Daily Bible Verse podcast. I'm inviting you to tune in and subscribe at lifeaudio.com.